A Viking king died by the blade of his own legendary sword. This is the story of a weapon that turned against its master, a mystery woven from history and dark myth. By the end, you will possess the tools to separate ancient fact from legendary fiction. To solve a cold case over 1,000 years old, we will uncover the real king behind the saga and examine the terrifying properties of his cursed blade. Was his fate a tragic accident, a divine punishment, or something far more sinister? What does it feel like to hold a story that has terrified generations in the palm of your hand? The most compelling candidate for our cursed king is Olaf Haraldsson, later known as Saint Olaf. He was a real flesh and blood ruler of Norway who met his end not in a shadowy ritual, but on the sunlit field of the Battle of Stiklestad in the year 1030. His story is a perfect blueprint for how history becomes legend. Olaf was a complex figure, a Viking warrior king who fought his way to power, yet also a zealous convert who used brutal force to spread Christianity across a pagan land. His reign was marked by fierce internal conflict, as he clashed with powerful chieftains and farmers who resented his central authority and his attacks on their traditional gods. This political turmoil ultimately led to his downfall. At Stiklestad, he faced a rebel army of his own countrymen, a coalition of those he had alienated, supported by the King of Denmark. He fell in battle a stark and political death. This is the historical bedrock. We know of it from sources like the Heimskringla, a collection of sagas written 2 centuries later, and from fragments of skaldic poetry composed closer to the event. These are not dry history books, they are epic narratives already blending fact with flair. But here is the crucial transformation. After his death, something remarkable happened. Olaf's cause was taken up by his son, and the narrative shifted. The king who died for his political ambitions was slowly recast as a martyr who died for his faith. Miracles were reported at his graveside. Within a year, he was declared a saint. His military defeat was no longer just a loss, it was reframed as a sacred sacrifice. And this is the fertile ground where curses take root. When a historical tragedy is infused with religious significance, the door opens for darker interpretations. If a saintly king was struck down, could it not be because some great sin tainted his victory? Or perhaps a sacred weapon in his hand was somehow profaned? The factual record of a battle provides the when and the where. The human need for meaning, for divine patterns in our chaos, provides the why. The messy political death of King Olaf was, over generations, polished into the ominous, fate-sealed death of Saint Olaf. His very real sword, a tool of war and sovereignty, was now waiting for the final ingredient to transform it into a vessel of doom. That sword needed a name, a title worthy of its dark legacy. In our story, we shall call it Skull Splitter's Bane. Its origins, lost to time, were written by fear. Some whispered it was not forged in any earthly fire, but in the cavernous workshops of the dwarves, masters of magic and metal deep beneath the mountains. Others claimed it was a gift from Odin himself, the All-Father, a blade meant to carve out a kingdom, given with a price the king did not fully understand. The most haunting version says it was taken as plunder from a temple of the old gods, its steel still cold from the shadow of the idols it was meant to protect. However it came to be, its curse was specific and cruel. It was said the sword would bring its wielder glorious victory, but only once. That single supreme triumph would exhaust all its favor, leaving only a hollow promise and a debt to be paid. Thereafter it would remain thirsty, refusing to slide easily into its scabbard until it had drunk, and it was not particular about whose blood would suffice. The sagas paint chilling scenes with this blade. In one legendary battle before the king's final fall, Skull Splitter's Bane is said to have failed him. As the king swung at a foe, the normally razor-edged steel turned as dull as a club, merely stunning the man. In another tale, during a ritual cleansing of weapons after a raid, the sword slipped from a retainer's grip and sliced the king's leg, a small but ominous wound that would not heal properly. These were not mere accidents in the Viking mind, but signs. They were messages from Weird, the inescapable web of fate. The curse reflected a profound belief that power, especially power taken or gifted by supernatural forces, was never free. It demanded balance. A weapon that could not be controlled was a mirror for a king whose ambition might have overreached his own destiny. The sword's refusal to be sheathed spoke to the endless cycle of violence a ruler must perpetuate. a cycle that eventually consumes everyone, even the king. Its alleged failure was the ultimate betrayal, not of metal but of fortune. When St. Olaf fell at Stiklestad, the legend easily claimed it was Skull Splitter's bane itself that delivered the mortal blow, wielded by a traitor's hand or flying from his own grasp. The cursed blade fulfilled its purpose, granting a kind of victory and martyrdom while ensuring its master's doom. It became a physical symbol of a terrifying truth, that the very instrument of your rise could be the architect of your fall. But legends are not born in a vacuum. They need a seed of truth, a physical object strange enough to spark the imagination. So what would a real Viking sword, the kind a king like Olaf might have carried, actually look and feel like? To understand the potential for a curse, we must first hold the reality in our hands. The most famous examples are the Ulfbert swords. These were not crude iron clubs, but masterpieces of early medieval metallurgy. Their blades bore the name ULFBRHT inlaid in iron letters, a maker's mark that became a brand of immense prestige. They were likely forged in the Frankish kingdoms using crucible steel imported from Central Asia, a material far purer and stronger than the locally produced iron common in Scandinavia. In the hands of a Viking warrior, an Ulfbert would have been a terrifying advantage. It would be lighter, sharper, more flexible, and less likely to shatter in battle than the swords of his foes. To a society that revered craftsmanship, such a weapon would indeed seem magical. Its performance was supernatural. The process of pattern welding, where rods of iron and steel are twisted and forged together, created beautiful, rippling patterns on the blade that looked like flowing water or serpents. People saw the soul of the weapon in those patterns, a visible spirit in the steel. Now has a sword ever been found that we can directly link to our cursed king? While no blade bears the inscription property of St. Olaf, archaeology provides haunting possibilities. In various royal burial mounds across Scandinavia, swords have been discovered placed beside their owners, but often in a startling condition. They have been ritually killed. Before burial, the sword was deliberately bent, sometimes into a tight U shape, or the blade was notched and broken. This was not an act of disrespect, but the opposite. It was a funeral rite. By killing the sword, you released its spirit to accompany the warrior to the afterlife. You also took it out of circulation, preventing its use by lesser men and perhaps containing its power. To later generations discovering such a deliberately destroyed, beautiful weapon in a king's grave, the story writes itself. Why would they break such a priceless object unless it was dangerous, unless it was cursed? The physical evidence of a killed sword is a perfect catalyst for a legend of a blade that could not be controlled. There is another, more chillingly practical origin for a curse. Could a sword be literally poisoned? Historical accounts, though rare, mention the use of toxins on blades and arrowheads. Plants like aconite, also known as monkshood or wolfsbane, produce a potent poison that can be absorbed through a wound. A blade treated with such a substance might cause a warrior to die from a seemingly minor cut, succumbing to heart failure or paralysis days later under mysterious circumstances. If a king owned a sword kept in a sheath treated with a toxic resin, or if a rival had contaminated the blade, every nick and scratch could become a lingering death sentence. The sword itself would appear to be killing slowly, independent of the severity of the wound. In a world without forensic science, the conclusion would be inevitable. The weapon was bewitched. This is where artifact and story fuse. The superior steel of an Ulfbert explains its legendary sharpness. The ritual of killing a sword explains why a powerful blade would be found destroyed. The potential of poison explains a mysterious, lingering death. Archaeology does not dig up curses, but it uncovers the strange, tangible realities that are far more compelling than pure fiction. There are the anomalies that the human mind cannot leave unexplained. We find a bent sword and we must ask why. That question, echoing over centuries, is the birthplace of myth. The story of the cursed king and his blade did not end with the Viking Age. It was carried forward, reshaped by every new generation that told it. The first crucial transformation came from an unlikely source: Christian monks and scribes. These were the men who, in the centuries after the Viking raids subsided, began to write down the oral sagas. They preserved the tales, but they also filtered them through their own worldview. In their hands, a pagan curse often became a lesson in Christian morality. The sword's malevolence might be reinterpreted as divine punishment for the king's earlier heathen ways, or a test of his newfound faith. The saga's ambiguous weird or fate was sometimes straightened into a clearer path of sin and retribution. This was not necessarily destruction, but translation, adapting a powerful pagan motif for a Christian audience and ensuring the story's survival in a changing world. From these written sagas, the tale bled into the fertile soil of Scandinavian folklore. Here, the cursed weapon found a new home, often as the prized possession of a draugr, a fearsome undead creature that guards its burial mound and its treasure for eternity. These stories served as supernatural cautionary tales, warning against greed and grave robbery. To seek a famous king's sword was to risk encountering its monstrous, undead owner. The curse was no longer just about the wielder's fate, but about the weapon's eternal, unnatural attachment to its master, a bond that defied death itself. This folkloric version emphasized the object's inherent danger, a danger that existed independently of anyone's soul. This evolving legend directly inspired some of the most iconic cursed swords in later literature. The Hervarar saga, compiled in the 13th century, features the sword Tyrfing, a blade forged by dwarves that must kill a man every time it is drawn and will ultimately bring about the death of 3 kings. The parallels are unmistakable, a direct literary descendant of our older tale, and Tyrfing's legacy is immense. It was a key inspiration for J.R.R. Tolkien, a professor of Anglo-Saxon. You can see its echo in the dragon's treasure hoard of The Hobbit, where the Arkenstone and the wealth of Erebor spark a deadly greed, and more directly in the cursed blades carried by the Barrow Wights, undead spirits guarding grave mounds filled with ancient, dangerous weapons. The template traveled from Viking skulls to a 20th century Oxford Don, and from there into the bedrock of modern fantasy. Today, the trope is everywhere, proof of its raw, enduring power. In the television series Vikings, legendary blades like Sigurd's swordgram carry the weight of prophecy and doom. In the God of War games, Kratos wields weapons like the Leviathan axe, which are deeply tied to tragedy and legacy, modern echoes of the old magic. Assassin's Creed Valhalla lets players literally uncover and wield mythic weapons from Scandinavian legend, completing the circle by turning the audience into the saga hero. Each adaptation makes choices, softening the curse, focusing on the glory, or exploring the psychological burden, but the core remains, the irresistible and terrifying idea of a power that demands a price. The journey from a whispered saga around a fire to a high-definition screen is a testament to one thing: our timeless fascination with the object that betrays, with the gift that ruins. We are still drawn to that moment of dreadful realization, the understanding that the source of your strength is also the instrument of your fate. So the blade's journey ends not in a burial mound, but here with us centuries later. We began with a stark historical fact, a king's death in battle. We watched as that fact was wrapped in the shimmering gauze of sainthood, then shadowed by the grim poetry of a curse. We held the cold, hard reality of pattern-welded steel and ritual destruction, and saw how easily it transforms into legend. This is the true power of the story. It is far more than a simple ghost tale. It is a cultural lens, a complex artifact of the Viking mind. Through it we see their deep reverence for craftsmanship, where a superior sword could only be explained by dwarf-forged magic. We feel their profound belief in wielded, the inescapable web where every victory borrows from future fortune and all power demands a price. We understand their need to find meaning, not in random battlefield chaos, but in a narrative where weapons have souls and kings meet destinies written in steel. The curse is not a historical report, it is a philosophical argument about fate, responsibility, and the peril of great ambition. So we are left with that final, haunting question. Was the curse merely a later invention, a way for skalds to make sense of a shocking political defeat? Was it a deliberate moral lesson, a warning from Christian scribes about the sins of pride and stolen glory? Or is it possible, just possible, that somewhere in the heart of this legend lies a lost grain of truth? A truth about a poisoned blade, a betrayed oath, or a weapon so famed its very reputation became a self-fulfilling prophecy. The mystery is yours to unravel now. What do you believe? Share your own theories in the comments below. Are there other historical curses or legendary weapons whose stories you think hold a hidden key to the past? Let us know if you enjoyed this deep dive into where history and myth collide. Be sure to subscribe. Our next journey will take us into the mist-shrouded highlands, to the real location that inspired one of literature's most enduring and eerie tales. Until then, keep questioning the stories you think you know,